The Wildcat Sports Pub CNY Brewfest is coming up January 31st and February 1st at the New York State Fairgrounds. Taste your way through unlimited samples from more than 100 breweries. Now featuring hard ciders, seltzers, craft cocktails, and mocktails too. Grab your tickets now at cnybrewfest.com.
To learn more. WTLA North Syracuse, WSGO Oswego, W249BC Mattydale, W261AC Oswego, WTKWHD2 Bridgeport, ESPN Radio. This is the Burdick Lexus and Burdick BMW postgame show.
Welcome in on the postgame show. Tim Leonard and Jordan Capozzi with you after the Orange have picked up their second straight ACC victory. A little bit of a winning streak here for the Cuse. They were down by 8 with about 8 minutes to play at Chestnut Hill and end up winning the game by 8. Made 8 of their last 10 shots from the floor and take down BC on the road. First true road win of the season for the Orange. 79-71 the final, and we are live on QSportsTalk.com. We'll hear from Red Autrey or try to get to some of Red Autrey as we roll along on the postgame show. And we welcome your phone calls as well. 315-437-7644 is the phone number to call. That is 4ESPN 44. It was looking a little hairy there, Jordan, in the midway point of the second half, and then J.J. Starling kind of took over this game. 20 points in the second half for Starling, finished with 26 in the game.
That guy's good, huh?
Yeah, good to have him back.
We'll talk a lot about it throughout the game, but one thing I think kind of won Syracuse's game that I don't know if we've seen much this season. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe it's having J.J. Starling, but this was the first time where I think I saw them shoot threes throughout a game, and then at a certain point in the game, basically make a hard cutoff and say, we're not making these. Boston College is getting ticky-tack fouls at the rim. Why don't we do that? And then, Kyle Cuff made those 2 threes, which we call in the industry no, yes shots. But
yeah.
They went in. But I think that's really what won Syracuse this game, the fact that they were willing to adjust, attack the rim, and get those points inside and at the foul line. Did they make a lot of free throws? No, but we can let that go in a win for now.
Yeah, they ended up looking okay in the free throw shooting column because they made a ton late. Eddie Lampkin actually made some free throws down the stretch. It was a little scary when he went to the line for a 1-and-1. Some of the late game execution wasn't perfect, but Eddie still did knock in a 1-and-1 and made, I think, 4 straight foul shots towards the end of this game. Syracuse was 16 for 22 at the line. It was talked about a lot on the TV broadcast, but the Orange did not turn the ball over nearly as much as they had been doing. 18 turnovers per game in the last 5. They had just 2 in the second half turnover-wise. Finished the game with 5 turnovers. Now, BC didn't really turn it over either. The Eagles 6 turnovers, but Syracuse took care of the basketball and made some nice plays down the stretch here. And you brought up Kyle Cuff. I didn't think they were even going to go back to Kyle Cuff in the second half, the coaching staff. And then Chris Bell came out, and Chris Bell did not have a good game here this afternoon. Bell took a bad shot on the baseline that went off the side of the backboard. Thought he should have been fouled, or there should have been a foul call, and kind of put his arms up instead of attacking the rebound. And you could tell Adrian Autrey quickly went to the bench and went for Kyle Cuff after seeing that. And that may have been sneaky one of the biggest plays of this game, because then Kyle Cuff was pretty important. He hit the only 2 threes Syracuse had in the second half and had 10 points in 10 minutes off the bench in the second half.
You said Bell went to the bench quickly. Not as quickly as Lucas Taylor did after that second foul he picked up.
That was
He's funny after a foul. Just a little aside. We'll get into more meaningful stuff moving forward. But the calls are already flowing in, which is shocking because they won. So let's get to them, shall we, on the post-game show. Matt Gavendo in the Cuse, batting leadoff. What's going on, Matt?
I just wanted to make sure I was the first caller tonight. I thought they played pretty well. The game was actually dictated by the refs, in my opinion. In the first half, I thought they were leaning more towards Boston College. In the second half, I think they were leaning more towards us, which was crazy. Now, Cuff was a fire starter. If he can do that off the bench and give you that much spark and energy, and we're going to be in some games, but I think it's a good step forward. You know what I mean?
I would agree. And I will say, like, there were some fouls on BC that I was like, are you kidding me? But I almost don't think it was as much the refs themselves as it was when Syracuse made that conscious decision to start attacking the rim, thanks to J.J. Starling, who didn't get fouled a lot somehow, thanks to Kyle Cuff. I think that's when it kind of changed. I want to give Syracuse more credit for that than the officials, because I think it was something they did that got them those fouls at the end. Personally, that's how I saw it.
JJ had a great game. And
Yeah.
he did what a leader should do. And congrats to them. As I said, we are now on a winning streak. Have a great night, guys.
Got to cherish the small moments while you have it. We appreciate you checking in, Gavendo, and let's keep the phone calls coming. Let's check in with Pat in Syracuse, who normally is batting leadoff, but Pat, you just missed out tonight or today. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I know in college you don't make a trade, but it looks like Syracuse made a trade, right?
With Starling, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
We had to watch Carlos for 30 minutes plus, and now Carlos is, Tusi and some of these guys, they're saying he's a 5-minute guy. I think the truth's in the middle. He could get anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, and come in and do some things. Maybe set up like he did. He came in, he set up Taylor for one or two of his threes, and then he hit a three. But these extended minutes for Carlos is why this town and this season has gone to the pits, and that's was predicated on JJ's injury. JJ's injury was massive. I think our best five when Freeman comes back. Now there's two ways to spin this, but my five I want on the floor are definitely Lampkin at the 5, Freeman and Davis together, and then the backcourt could be big with put Taylor at the 2 and JJ at the 1. Or if you don't like that because you feel like you're too big, then you could either insert Cuff or whoever you want and take out any of those guys but Lampkin, and that's your best squad. But Bell should be just coming in to shoot threes if we need a 3-point shooter. I don't think he's going to start the rest of the year. And, I saw a little bit of this Kyle Cuff last year, and then, with, let's face it, he was playing behind two players that were way better, Judah and JJ. And it's hard for him to, you need to get minutes and he was coming off of not playing and blah, blah, blah. But you could tell Cuff was recruited by Kansas for a reason. People don't realize when Cuff was in his original class in high school, he was a top 50 recruit. Then he reclassified up a year, and that was the only reason he didn't stay in the top 50. But Kansas wanted him and got him. So, this whole narrative that, Kansas didn't want him and this and that's garbage. He got hurt at Kansas.
I've always said with Cuff, Pat, I think he does a lot of things really well. He just misses a lot of threes, unfortunately. Like tonight or today, he made some threes in the second half. Unfortunately, if he was a 35% three-point shooter, I think he would play a lot of minutes, but he hasn't really proven that he can get to high 30s or even mid-30s three-point percentage-wise. Now, in the second half, he made a couple open ones today, which was good to see.
Right, but 30% is better than 15, and that's what Carlos is at. I mean, 19% is just, it's trash. So,
but you got your wish with Carlos. Well. I don't think Carlos is going to be much of a factor, like you're saying, maybe 5-10 minutes. I think the conversation then becomes Kyle Cuff or Chris Bell, because when Chris Bell put up that bad shot and didn't follow his miss and complained, that's when he went to Kyle Cuff. And going back to your best 5, I think that is the best 5 players. If Red was hearing your phone call, I'm sure he would counter with, we wouldn't have enough spacing then. And we know that he really likes to have good spacing on offense.
Wait a minute. Okay. You need 3 shooters. You need 3 shooters to get the spacing. Plus, Lampkin can play 5 out. Now, Lampkin, we don't want him shooting threes, but Lampkin's very comfortable operating from that high post or the top of the key and running that offense. So that would be a horrible take, because JJ can spread the floor, Cuff can spread the floor, or if you don't include Cuff, Taylor's shooting it now. Freeman, I mean, he hit 4 threes in one game. He started out the season where he didn't want him shooting threes.
They don't want Donnie being a 3-point shooter. So,
well, that's Donnie's future. Donnie's future in the NBA is a 3. I don't think he's ever going to be strong enough to be a 4. Maybe he's definitely long enough, but I think his shot was never broken. I just think it was the pace of the game why he was missing these threes. Because, Tim, when you go from high school to college, it's such a faster paced game that's why he was missing those shots. He was just rushing them.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Would you rather, like when Donnie Freeman pulls up for a 3, would you rather Donnie Freeman take more inside shots or outside shots when you watch him play? I don't care about what his future is NBA. I'm talking about from a Syracuse standpoint, because I would rather see him scoring or trying to score more down low than he has been.
I would say in transition he would be a problem because he's first of all we don't run, but I think in that half court set it really depends on if a Lampkin and Davis are in the game. Then no, there's not enough room. But if Davis is out of the game and you just have Lampkin, then yeah, I like Donnie in the post, absolutely. So it really depends. I think he's versatile. That's what he's bringing to the table. He's not like he's an inside-out guy. He can face up. He doesn't have a big backside, so he's not a post player per se. But he can jump. He's long, so it'll be interesting. But the thing with this team is, some of these idiots in this town are asking about the NIT. First of all, who cares about the NIT? No, nobody should care about the NIT. And secondly, with the transfer portal, like. These guys are going to be gone. You might not even have 5 guys to play in the NIT. So I don't know why anyone would be fixated in that. And then some of these idiots in the chat that are sitting there saying like Moore can hit the portal. I mean, how dumb can you be? I mean, anybody that doesn't want more on the team is just stop watching. I mean, that is one of the worst takes in a chat full of lousy takes. That one takes the cake. Guys, have a great weekend.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
Pat beat the quicksand. if you have good ears, you could hear he was slowly getting quieter there. I was giving Pat the quicksand treatment, and he beat it. Credit to him. Look, we see the chat. We know some of you don't love the calls from Pat, but at the same time, that's why we have a phone line with 3 different slots, so that if you call, then we'll be like, okay, Pat, nobody's behind you.
I don't mind the calls from Pat. I think it's good, healthy debate, and I think Pat would agree with me. Like, we usually go back and forth a little bit, but that's because we're both watching the game closely. And I think the lineup he brings up is, I'm curious to see if they will go to that lineup more, that 3 big lineup when Donnie comes back. And I brought it up to Red on a coach's show, and he said something like, yeah, we've looked at that, and everything's on the table. We're looking at all options.
I thought they were going to do it that one game, but it was just a mistake.
Yeah, right, when the clerical era of the starting lineup, yeah. So that was Maryland, I think. But yeah, they haven't showed that lineup. I think it'll be interesting. I'd be fascinated to see it. It just, there's some flaws, like, if you're going against a team like BC that's got some shifty guards, I don't know if that's the best defensive lineup to have out there. And then do you have enough spacing on offense? So, it's all healthy debate, though. I think it'd be interesting to see that lineup.
No, I agree. I enjoy the calls from Pat, and you can be next 315-437-7644. Tim, we've been rocking and rolling for a little bit. How about we take our first break on the Burdick post-game show? Burdick Toyota, Burdick Lexus, Burdick BMW,
all the
Burdick Ford post-game show. Maybe we get into some individual performances after the break. Maybe your calls dictate what we do. Who knows? Maybe we'll try to hear from Red Autrey before the end of the show. We definitely will try to do that, because RomanoCars.com would love that.
Exactly. All right, 315-437-7644. That is the phone number to call. 7971 Cuse over BC. We're back after this on CuseSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio.
Sunday.
Woo! We wanna. Yeah,
What's the chat
CJC
saying
with
about-
the Reuben, huh?
What's the chat saying about Pat?
Oh yeah, so we got.
GT is losing to SMU 50-19.
We got Donnie was still wearing a boot. Dinky Spont. No, there were just some people who were like, Pat, I love you. I love your calls. This is a bad one. People don't like being called idiots, which I can understand. But at the same time, like, I don't take it too personally. But maybe I would if somebody came as like, you're an idiot.
I also would say, Pat, I know he's probably still in the chat, like, the Carlos stuff, there's no reason even to bring him up anymore. Like, you got your wish with Carlos. And You said it well there. Like the JJ injury hurt them so much because then they were forced to play a lot of Carlos. Red even said that he was going towards that lineup, and maybe he should have gone to it earlier. I think you could make a valid argument about that, like after watching Carlos for the first 3-4 games. But
Shalp. I'm going back and forth on our guy Shalp in the chat because on one hand, he said he likes the McCord photos, which is great. On the other hand, he said Elijah Moore can hit the portal. We're good, which I don't agree with.
No. We want Elijah Moore.
No,
that would not be good.
We want him.
He hasn't been playing good, but
JJ was unstoppable, man. Something I loved, this is with Supercat, who said that. I'm sure everybody was thinking it. I loved how when Eddie was in the post, especially that one play near the end, most guys will just stand out on the 3-point line and wait for a three. JJ actually cut inside to try to get an easier look. And not only did that give him the easier look, but it allowed Eddie to find him and not have to make a more difficult pass. JJ's, all the ISO stuff that he does is cool. And, he's great at getting to the rack, but he also just knows how to play the game.
Fly Guy, how is it that Cuff can get open for three, but Bell can't? I agree with you from a standpoint of that out of bounds play. It was kind of refreshing to be like, oh, and there actually have been pretty good out of bounds this year, but that particular play set up Cuff to be wide open. But honestly, some of that is everyone knows in the scouting report with Bell that they're not going to leave him or they have to stay glued to him on the 3-point line. And I think Cuff only got one open three. He kind of crossed over into another one that Jordan said was a no-yes shot, honestly.
Well, that was he came off a ball screen. He got a ball screen from Eddie and just took a little side step and put it up. It was in rhythm, but
I would agree. I think it's frustrating that they can't get Bell more open looks.
Yeah, that one I don't get.
Yeah.
Pat, you're going to be good. Don't worry, man. We appreciate you calling.
What's the latest?
Oh, just OMFG. But it's funny because it just blends into the entire chat. So you just have a whole chat of guys, and then just Pat, OMFG.
Pat, you're going to be good. I love how that's I don't even know what they're talking about, Pat, but you're going to be good.
Yeah, no, he's good. I also hope they can play like a team the rest of the season, Zachary. I will say, I think JJ being back just makes it so much easier for everybody to do what they do.
They're more fun to watch, too.
Oh,
JJ's he's really good.
I like when JJ does the little scoop. I enjoy the little scoop.
He had 26 and didn't even make 2 free throws, no threes. It's pretty wild.
Brought to you by Perry's. Can that be a thing? The scoop shot? Pitch that.
Okay. There are a ton of McCord photos. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's so many McCord photos. Well, Cody was hurt, dude.
Walked in and out of here 3 times, never realized.
Yeah, I'm curious what's going to happen. I first of all, I'll say this. I don't care about it right now, but I'll say it because everybody's talking about it. I'm curious, JJ, does he have a decision to make at the end of the season? It's
what, draft or?
I don't know, just draft portal?
I think he'd come back. I don't see him getting drafted, but...
Yeah, that's true. But if he plays like he's been playing, though, probably not as highly as he'd like. I never know with the NBA, though, because the age matters so much. They want you as young as...
Right.
No Drake. No Drake.
You'd probably get a G League look, but I don't see it. Yeah.
I download the wrong file, so I'll see if we have Red from after the game. Okay. Next break.
Lexus and Burdick BMW postgame show.
Welcome back in on the postgame show, brought to you by Burdick. Tim Leonard, Jordan Capozzi, hanging with you on QSportsTalk.com. Also on the radio airwaves. We'll hear from Red Autrey a little bit later on the postgame show as the Orange do pick up their second straight win. They have won 2 Power Conference games now on the year, 2 ACC games, a productive 2-0 week. First true road win of the year as well. 79-71, the final score from Boston College. I think we're probably in agreement on this, Jordan. A game that they should have won. I thought it was a little head-scratching that BC was favored when we got to the studio today to watch the game. I think I said that to you.
Yeah, that was the classic, they're at home, we'll give them the edge, but we have no clue. Flip a coin, and we'll pretend that's who we think is winning.
And I think when you look at Syracuse's record, it is, you got to keep in mind the 7 games without J.J. Starling. Now, J.J.'s been back for 3 games. The Florida State game, they actually looked pretty good, and that was J.J. clearly shaking off some rust as well. He did come right out and hit a couple shots at FSU, but he wasn't very efficient. Today, to score 26 points, not hit a 3. Starling was 0 for 4 from 3, so he was 12 for 18 from 2-point range and only made 2 free throws, which is, like you said, kind of crazy that he only got 2 free throws attempted. But in the second half, he was 9 for 11 from 2-point range, 9 for 14 overall, 20 points in the second half. And he is as good as we've seen at Syracuse in a little bit at driving and getting his own shot, late in shot clock. It feels like he's as reliable as you can be right now. Maybe you have to go back to like a Tyus Battle in terms of late game situations. Need a bucket, let's let JJ go cook his defender and get us a bucket.
Yeah, there was the one play, I don't remember exactly when, but it was an out-of-bounds play. They threw it into the backcourt, Syracuse did, 9 seconds, and JJ just kind of ran from backcourt to front court and got his layup. And I said to you, can that be every possession?
Yeah.
Can they just throw it off him out of bounds and get JJ ahead of steam in the backcourt? Kyle Cuff has that same ability to get to the hole, which is why I think it frustrates people so much seeing him shoot, although he shot well today. But what separates JJ is just that mid-range, whether it's that little push shot, whether it's that little scoop. He had one opposite foot today. He can just get that shot at any point in his drive, and it's accurate. And I'll kind of, throw some egg on my own face today because we watched the game together, and I said something like, does JJ just shoot like 33% every game? Is he, because he takes a lot of shots, not always high efficiency.
Well, he was 3 for 10 at one point, so he really didn't miss
12
shots
for
down
22.
the stretch.
Yeah, like you'll take that every game with the difficult shots JJ's taking. Besides JJ, one thing I saw today that I think is really going to go a long way for this team moving forward, Lucas Taylor, we heard he was a shooter. At the beginning of the season, couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Now we saw some catch and shoot threes, like easy shots throughout the season, but he's making them. Today, we saw 1 3 from the corner where he got a pass from Carlos. It was not like right in the shooter's pocket, and he just caught it and shot it from an uncomfortable position. And then we saw a step back 3 from Taylor. If we have Taylor shooting not only accurately, but those difficult types of shots to defend throughout the season, that takes pressure off of Chris Bell to be the only person shooting consistently. That adds another weapon. It gives Red some leeway to use lineups without Chris Bell. I think that would be just gigantic if Lucas Taylor can not only hit the easy shots, but kind of hit some high degree of difficulty threes.
Yeah, Taylor as a shot creator, he has really blossomed this year from where he started the year for Syracuse. And maybe some of that was just nerves because he was a shot creator for Georgia State, different level. But the one thing that is kind of interesting is you hit on how Syracuse just started driving the basketball. They weren't attempting threes. The Orange were 5 for 15 from 3-point range in this game. But it took until Kyle Cuff's 3 with maybe 8 or 9 minutes left in the second half for their first 3 in the second half. No one but Cuff hit a 3 in the second half. And that's kind of the puzzling thing is you go back to what we thought this team's identity would be in the preseason, and we thought they would be getting up and down, high-scoring games, winning because they're making more threes, they're passing the ball more, and they actually just won this game because they have better playmakers in the half court, and it was a lot of J.J. Starling just going and getting himself a bucket. Jair Davis was better in this game at posted up, I'm just going to go will myself into a bucket on the low block. And I don't know what to make of that because that's kind of what they were trying to avoid when they addressed some different players in the transfer portal and tried to get some more role pieces in here. And now it feels like the coaching staff is just like, in a game against BC like this, we have better personnel, and let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be. Let's just spread out the floor and let JJ get room to go down the alley and score a bucket.
You mentioned Jair Davis, man. 6 for 12 from him is like an inefficient game from what we've seen from him this season.
He hasn't attempted 12 shots in a while, though, so that's good to see.
And that brings up the point, like, when Donnie's back, you're putting him in as much as possible, right? But I really like what Davis brings. Like, he brings a toughness. He actually tries to use his physicality to get easy shots. He goes and battles on the boards. Eddie Lampkin had 13, Davis behind him with 8. But I just don't want to see Jair lose opportunity when Freeman comes back, and that kind of stinks. But
yeah,
I'm so interested to see what this team actually looks like with Starling, with Freeman, and with all of them having played together a little bit.
I think the tough part about Davis is when he came in, the chatter in the offseason was they're trying to develop his three-point shot, make him a player that can be good off the ball and really expand his game. Because at Delaware, he did a lot of what he did today, which is throw it down to the mid post, and he's basically on a clear out on the right side of the lane. No one's around him, and give him space to operate and go into a couple pump fakes and score a post move and a bucket. And when Donnie Freeman's out there, they don't really need that, or there's guys that are a little bit more capable of scoring. So Davis, unfortunately, his three-point shot didn't develop, I don't think, as much as they thought. And that just goes back to what I'm saying here, which is you're not going to complain because Syracuse was 57% from the floor in the second half. I mentioned they made 8 of their last 10 shots after they were down by 8 with 8 minutes left. They pretty much executed perfectly in half-court offense, and some of those were tough shots, but they just have some good shot makers now that JJ is back and healthy. But you wonder, okay, you can get away with that against BC. Can you make 5 threes against some of the top teams in the ACC and still win? And can you rely on half-court offense and kind of going against the identity of what we thought the team was going to be in the preseason?
Well, I don't want to talk about how they're going to do against better teams right now,
well, that's the whole point.
No, the point is to talk about this game, Tim.
Okay.
Syracuse
just be happy that we're on a winning streak.
2 straight ACC games, back to 500.
Yeah.
Another thing they did, the free throw shooting stunk early. They finished 16 for 22. They hit clutch free throws.
I know Lampkin, as I said, he hit some big ones. We were kind of like, why is Eddie Lampkin out there with under a minute left when it's a free throw contest? And Taylor threw him a pass, and it was a 1-and-1. I think it was a 5-point game all of a sudden at one point, and Lampkin was going to the line for a 1-and-1, which was pretty bad execution, really. You don't want Lampkin touching the ball, considering he's like a 55% foul shooter on the year. But he did make them down the stretch. They made the big free throws. You were really
happy about that?
Yeah, I was worried. I mean, I don't know why it came to that, but anyway.
Before we hit another break, Adrian Autrey, right after the game, here is what he said. It's brought to you by RomanoCars.com. Syracuse men's basketball coach Red Autrey immediately following the win over Boston College.
You know, it was a great win on the road. I think the guys did a great job staying with it, executing. I'm just proud of these guys, man. Like, again, this is a great group. These guys keep battling. They keep their heads up, so I'm just proud of these guys coming away with a win on the road against a good Boston College team.
That was over on TK99. Not much there, but don't worry. We'll get you some quotes from Adrian Autrey's post-game press conference, also brought to you by RomanoCars.com, coming up after a break.
All right, let's hit a break here. If you have a thought after this one, feel free to call in. Phone lines are open, 315-437-7644. That is 4ESPN44 if you'd like to call in on the Burdick postgame show. Tim and Jordan with you after a 79-71 victory for the Cuse, their second straight win in ACC play. We're back after this on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio.
This is...
Thank you, Lee. Tip, tip, tap.
That's not.
It's just, it was making me laugh. Like,
I'm a big.
Yeah.
If you literally, which you clearly did, if you definitely just mentioned Lampkin hit clutch threes, then I just sounded stupid blowing by. I apologize. I was downloading the
oh, no, sound. You're good. I'm
not saying BC's a good team. If anybody, look, there's a reason the narrative on these airwaves, on the internet, I would say, especially on these airwaves, the past week has been, I mean, geez, guys, we were going to start Itan and Devo Mondays at 11:30 a.m. on ESPN Radio and QSportsTalk.com. we were going to expedite the start to Wednesday if they lost to Georgia Tech because we would have been in emergency mode. Brian said it before the game, like, you've got to win this game if you're Syracuse. Like, nobody's saying these teams were good, but I'm not going to pretend that a couple weeks ago I was assuming these were both wins either. Red has to say it, Phil. Red has to say it.
You're saying they should press more, Pat? Because if you're going to throw out that press, it needs to be better than what we saw. Remember the start of Wake Forest? Was that Bucknell was the first game they used it, then Wake Forest sliced it up. I don't know if I love what I've seen from the press, which, if you're going to go to it, I don't think it's a bad idea. You just got to make sure it's better than what we've seen.
Deuce is back. You are right. Guys, I don't know if you heard, Marlo Wax had an interception in the Hula Bowl today.
What is that? I had never heard of that in my life. The Hula Bowl?
You know about the Hula Bowl, dude?
Good for Marlo, though.
I'm going to guess it's in Hawaii.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Probably
guess.
not, but it feels like a long way to go for a...
Yeah, that's a great point. Then why is it the Hula Bowl? Hold on. We're looking up the Hula Bowl. It was held in Hawaii, and they played in Orlando.
Red's not going to get on there and be like, yeah, BC stinks. Like, I mean, he doesn't want his team to take them lightly.
That'd be freaking awesome if Red was just like, yeah, man, I mean, let's be honest.
And that's not Red specific. Every coach in the history of ever is never going to admit that a team they're playing against is a bad team because that's not good
used
coaching.
To do it and people got mad, didn't he? Like
Did he?
I think Boeheim, they used to, be like Colgate's a good team. Like Colgate's a bad example.
Oh, you're saying? I thought you were saying
no,
he used to
I'm
say
saying
teams are bad. Yeah, he did.
No coach for two reasons. One, you don't want to crap on your own players. That's almost like
also as a peer in the you don't want to call out a coach.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Like you guys hate Jared Grasso. Like that's something he would do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also like it's.
But we can say that BC isn't very good.
Yeah. No, they're not good. They're not good. Not at all. We'll get you some quotes from Red after the game. If we can get the full presser, we will air it once myself and Tim are off the air. Also, if you are looking for playoff football after this, I believe we have it on the AM. I don't think it's going to be on the FM. Looks like there's crunch tonight.
When is the playoff game score? 6-0 Chargers.
Oh, dude, we can do that on the radio, dude. If you're here looking for NFL playoffs, then you're a jerk because Syracuse just won a game. That's 2 in a row. 2 in a row, but we'll give you the score because we care about you. The players do sound happy.
Lampkin technical seemed like another soft technical.
Yeah.
But
Cuse Sports Knower, new chat. Welcome to the chat. I like them. I do like the movement on offense. I do. I think they figured out which players they can get in there who will move around. And I also think just JJ creates a lot of chaos.
JJ makes it look a lot better, too, because he can go get his. I don't know if it's changed a ton, but, I mean, having Kyle Cuff out there versus Bell.
Tim, you highlighted Kyle Cuff's performance.
Did I? Wow.
If Paul posted a clip of me calling his shot a no, yes shot, I'm going to appreciate him.
Although Mike spoiled the results of the shot.
I'm also not wrong. That's a no, yes shot. I'll get into some of his post-game quotes.
Okay.
What's up?
But I was just going to say, I don't think Red was happy when he took the shot, I'm guessing.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
You're all good, Paul. I'm just messing around.
W Postgame Show.
Back in on the postgame show, brought to you by Burdick, Tim Leonard, Jordan Capozzi. 2 of us here after this one, after the second straight win for Syracuse.
You know what that means? We got to have 3 people on postgame for the Louisville game Tuesday.
That's too much.
For 3 straight wins.
Do we even know 3 people that are free after Louisville?
Give us a call, 315-437-7644. You could be on postgame.
Right.
No, you can't. But one thing that is always on postgame, whether we're live at the Dome or whether we're getting you sound from the locker room or whether we're getting you some quotes from Red's press conference. We always let you hear from Red Autrey here on ESPN Radio Syracuse, and it's always brought to you by RomanoCars.com. Some quotes from Red Autrey after the win over Boston College. He credited the win to shot selection. He believes that the shot selection was really good, Red said. He called it a good old-fashioned game, and some of you may not have liked it, but Red said, I like the way the refs ref that game. They let the guys battle. Those guys being Eddie Lampkin and Chad Venning.
Yeah, they were talking smack, going back and forth with one another.
More praise for Kyle Cuff. Red praised his toughness, his ability to make shots and get inside, but also to play both ends of the floor. Red loves Kyle Cuff, man. Red loves Kyle Cuff. Donnie Freeman is still day-to-day. Also, if you love Kyle Cuff, tune into Orange Nation. We'll have him on the show Monday at 1:30 p.m. right from Paulie Sibilia.
Good get.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Shut up, Paulie. He's out there grinding in Boston. And here's the quote you were all waiting for, and then we can get back to the analysis and less of the quotes. There you go. 2-1 since J.J. Starling returned. I think other people got better, and I think J.J. got better. Also, a Boston College reporter noted that Red shouted out the fan presence at the Conte Forum, which I think a lot of us have talked about.
Yeah, it's always
a
good.
neutral
You can hear
game
some
at
"Let's
worst."
Go Orange," yeah. Especially when they typically win out there. They did not win at BC last year. That was one of the tough losses. So good to kind of right the wrongs a little bit from last year. I guess the biggest question coming off this, Jordan, is
this guy's going to ask me about playing against better teams again.
Well, yes, because that's what we have to do. We have to wonder now. All right, Louisville's coming in Tuesday night. Then it's Notre Dame at home. That's the next two games. We've seen Notre Dame already, and that was a game where Syracuse did not have JJ, if I'm remembering correctly. I think for sure.
Yeah, because Notre Dame, no JJ. They were also missing Burton.
Yep, and he's back.
Yeah, and Syracuse still should have won that game, but I digress.
Yeah, so Notre Dame is a different conversation. Louisville, whole new team here. I think Louisville is a solid team, but you're at home. Is this sustainable, or is this just a matter of they won a couple rock fights against some bad teams? Like Georgia Tech apparently is getting pummeled right now by SMU, but we don't need to go into that. Just the idea of this week, was it Syracuse making a lot of strides? Is it true that with J.J. Starling they could go on a run, or is it just they played some weak teams?
Well, Louisville is taking down everybody. So I'm not going to go out and predict a win against Louisville. I think that's fair. I like the fact that in JJ's return, aside from FSU, who even they're like middle of the pack at best, they got some weaker competition, which gives JJ a chance to get his confidence back and to get back in rhythm with all of his teammates. So I think there's a chance for gradual progress for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to go out and beat Louisville.
Yeah, I guess Louisville's won 6 in a row. You're right.
They're no joke,
5-1 in the ACC. They just won at Pittsburgh. They also beat Clemson at home. They beat Virginia on the road. They beat UNC. That's a lot of good wins that I just named.
A lot
Florida
of their
State
losses
on the road.
have been ranked teams.
Yeah. Louisville's having a very nice year under Pat Kelsey in the first year. So they're 33rd in KenPom right now. They are projected on KenPom to beat Syracuse on the road by 6. 79-73 is the score prediction there.
That's closer than I'd put it.
Yeah. I mean, the
just
home
being
court.
honest.
Right. And Syracuse, I said this before. I think it was Georgia Tech postgame. I said this, that the Orange are now projected to lose their next 7 games on KenPom. I don't think they're going to lose their next 7, but it gets a lot tougher. If we're being honest, the start of the ACC schedule, and already a weak ACC, was pretty friendly to Syracuse. They didn't have JJ for that Notre Dame game, but Wake Forest at home, Florida State on the road, Georgia Tech at home, and BC on the road was a pretty kind introduction to conference play, and it's going to get tougher here. I think especially after, so they play Louisville, then Notre Dame at home. Then they go on the road to play a good Clemson team that's probably a tournament team. Pittsburgh's probably a tournament team. That's at home. And then you have the
Duke
Cali.
smoked them the other night, by the way, so that just shows how far
Duke's
and
good.
beyond they are.
Yeah, Cooper Flagg had 42 today. And that game against Duke is on February 5th at home. Before that is your Cali swing, which is not going to be easy, although the Orange football team went out and took care of business 3 times out west this year, but that's a whole different thing. So, yeah, the schedule's getting tougher. That's why it's hard for me to like buy in on a winning streak is coming or this is more sustainable. But I think it is clear, like, Red is right. They're 2-1 with J.J. Starling back, and I do think they would be a much better team record-wise right now if they hadn't lost J.J. That's not breaking new ground. But that's the unfortunate thing about this. And then maybe you get Donnie Freeman back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and that's going to be a thing, too. Like, once Donnie gets back into the lineup, like, is there more adjusting with JJ and Donnie playing a bunch together? We'll see. In terms of the next stretch coming up, and how about I cut it off at the Duke game? Because that's when things get real. Like, you got to get revenge on Notre Dame at home with both teams closer to full strength. Like, that's when you got to try to go grab. The rest of them, I mean, you'd kind of just try to pick 1 or 2 of them off, but even the games, you look at Stanford and Cal, and you might think like, oh, well, they're not that good. I mean, yeah, they're not the top of the ACC. Those are tough road trips. Like, that's going to be brutal playing a game that late at night against a solid basketball team. And I know it sounds like an excuse, but it's just life. Try to maybe win 1 of 2 there on the road, tough games. But even that, you're only 2-4 heading into the Duke game. But that's kind of going to be the name of the game for the rest of the season, as there will be very few games that you can look at and say, I think this is one that they have a good chance of winning. They're just going to have to go and pick teams off like, last year, nobody expected that team to beat UNC, and they went out and did it. That's what this team's going to need to be just for kind of a prolonged stretch.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time looking at the KenPom projections. That's just one site, but they're only projected to win 3 more games the rest of the year right
now. What's Bart Torvik talking about? Is he being nicer?
We can compare
Where's
and contrast.
Evan Miyakawa? Is he nicer? Whoever is nicest to Syracuse gets a slot on Orange Nation this week.
They did go up 12 spots in the KenPom rankings after this win. They were 124, and now they are 112 on KenPom's rankings. Syracuse has the 117th ranked offense and the 148th ranked defense. So let's hit our final break here on the Burdick Postgame Show. If you have a thought after this one, you can call in. We conveniently don't get many callers once it's a win. That's usually how it works. But
yeah, 315 call in
437-7644 if you want to call in. Again, 315-437-7644. It's Tim and Jordan on the Postgame Show here on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio.
Evan Canty.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of a reasonable sounding way to say, like, I don't know what games they're going to freaking win. Why? Well, you can't post 2 clips about Kyle Cuff.
Wait, what?
He's talking about when I...
You didn't say no, yes again, though. You said it earlier.
No, right? I know. Hold on, I got to... Yes, it's on. Oh, dude, what if we post that clip and then Kyle Cuff's like, "Ooh, sorry, my dog's getting a dental work Monday at 1:30. I can't." Yeah. Oh yeah. I was trying so hard to find something intelligent to say in a way that also says like, "No, Tim, they're not fucking."
Yeah, Pat, that's a valid point. Like, could they have tried Cuff at the point more when Starling was out? I think like Red has made the proper adjustments. The argument you could make is that sometimes it was like a game or two too late, maybe, or he's just like needs to be a little quicker or a little bit more decisive. I think that's fine to say. Like Chris Bell. The idea that they had a chat and they mutually agreed that he should come off the bench and all that, I think makes perfect sense. That was the right adjustment, and you got to give him credit for making the adjustment, but also it was after 4 or 5 games where Bell was like really like that's all we were talking about for 4 or 5 games is how do you get Chris Bell going? UNC up 2. I didn't really confirm the SMU score, but I take it that you guys were right. They're clobbering Georgia Tech.
No, I just mean like when I say shit, like I want something to be done right.
Yeah, 84-58.
Is there anything you guys want to talk about for this last break before we head out? We do have commercials, Govendo. I will say that, and we do have 2 people, so I wouldn't give us too much credit.
What do you say?
Just that we went more than 40 minutes.
Yeah.
One thing I'm curious about, we were talking a lot about how they're using Eddie Lampkin, and we got into it a bit with Pat, but I'm wondering, is there a way to have Eddie Lampkin facilitate offense still with JJ there? Like, I know you want the ball in JJ's hands all the time, but I feel like Eddie's almost exclusively in the post now. Am I crazy? Like, I don't remember him at all getting the ball high post.
I like when they do that action where it's like Lampkin on the wing, maybe just under the arc, and he gives a handoff to JJ and then kind of sets a screen, and JJ's like downhill. Like, Eddie probably doesn't get an assist for that, but it's basically an assist.
Or I like the one from last game. They did that, but then they had Eddie dive, and they had Jair at the top of the key, so he could kind of make something happen. Because, when Eddie dives, like, he's bringing somebody with him, whether they want to go or not.
That's one thing they do pretty well.
That's Syracuse sports knower.
Like the pin downs they get for even Bell a couple times has gotten some decent looks off of those.
I don't love Eddie at the 3-point line, but I do like him at the high post. And that's a great point, Supercat. Eddie is a sealer. That man can seal.
Yeah.
Beach ball on his nose and everything. No, that's a really good point. That does make sense.
I think sometimes they could be better. We can talk about this maybe, like at getting the ball into Eddie when he's posted up.
Yeah.
But
we can just cap
he
off.
only attempted 5 shots.
What do you want to see moving forward, basically, against Louisville?
New post-game show.
Back on the post-game show, final segment. After another victory for the Orange, a 2-0 week road win at Boston College, 79-71 the final. Syracuse was down by 8 in this game with about 8 minutes remaining and then proceeded to pretty much totally dominate Boston College. Over the final 8 minutes, the Orange were 8 for 10 from the floor. They made all their free throws. They shot it very efficiently in the second half, 57% from the floor in the second half. Only attempted 6 threes in the second half out of their 28 shot attempts in that second half. There were 13 for 14 from the line in the second half, Jordan, after that 0 for 5 start at the free throw line. So they did the appropriate things they needed to do in crunch time to win a game that, frankly, they should have won against a BC team that anytime you go, if you're Syracuse and you go into BC, it probably should be a win.
Yeah, I do like that you mentioned that they were down 8 late in the game, because there was a point where I don't think we're alone. I don't want to speak for you, but I was sitting there like, oh my gosh, they're going to lose this game. And they just turned it around. Again, a lot of that is J.J. Starling. One thing that concerns me a little bit, we've been hearing about the turnovers. Now, that's the biggest issue, and they need to fix it. Only 5 turnovers today against Boston College. I half seriously asked you after the game, is this the first time they won the turnover battle?
I looked it up. I think this is the 4th time all year they have.
Against that Boston College team, only committing 5 turnovers. A lot of the free throws came at the end of the game, but they finished with a good percentage, 33% from downtown, whatever, even on the boards. You asked me a little earlier what they're going to do against better teams, and my reaction was, I don't know, dude. It does make me a little nervous that they fixed a lot of problems that we've seen, and it was still a nail biter. The one thing they really need to fix, and it hasn't been as big of a talking point because usually they do well on the boards in terms of the numbers. You got to find a man and box out and stop letting the guy who's lined up in the corner for the other team just crash the boards.
Way too many times this year. It's a guy
so many times.
Slashing baseline. I can't even remember who it was in this game, but there were 2 or 3 times that, and Chris Bell has been guilty of that at times this year. Bell did not have a good game, so that's kind of the letdown. Is it felt like Bell was trending up, and there were so many numbers about how he's been shooting a lot better when JJ has been out there versus JJ not out there. Also, you still aren't getting much out of Elijah Moore. Played 13 minutes. I don't think it's...
That's odd.
Yeah. He's 0 for 2, 0 for 1 from 3. He doesn't give you really anything in assist column, rebounds. He's not a great defender. So if he's not making shots, it's kind of the Chris Bell conversation we've had for years now, that if he's not making shots, what is he giving you? And that's why I think a guy like Kyle Cuff is playing more and more.
And you figure, well, if JJ's going to play the point, that opens it up for Elijah Moore, but we just haven't seen it. In terms of the rebounds, good point made in our chat by Gavendo. Donnie Freeman was getting a lot of those boards, so maybe that's part of it. Here's something I want to ask you about, Tim, and we almost didn't get to it because they won the game.
Yeah.
Remember at the end of the first half, Syracuse had a 5-point lead. They went to the 2-3 zone and immediately gave up those classic 2-3 zone buckets. First, it was a 3. Kyle Cuff couldn't close out quick enough, and then it was a basket from the high post. I hated that decision. How much and when do you see the zone being a factor moving forward this season? Because I mean, that was just mind-blowing to me.
I think they scored
did
on
that.
3 straight possessions, and that was the only times they went to zone. I think if you have a certain lineup out there, like let's say Eddie Lampkin gets in foul trouble and Donnie Freeman is still hurt, maybe you're like, oh, we need 5 minutes from Naheem McLeod, let's go zone. But Kyle Cuff, to your point, you made the point when we were watching the game, he's not the guy that you want in zone defense. Cuff is actually a pretty good on-ball defender and man-to-man, and he's kind of a small guy to be racing out and closing out on a 3-point shot. So I didn't really like that. It wasn't like BC was shooting great and they were forced to go to a different wrinkle. It was more like, how was BC tied at the half with Syracuse? And I think everyone that was a BC fan watching this game was probably like, wow, it's pretty lucky that they're even tied right now.
Yeah, I don't. That decision just kind of baffled me, and it all worked out. I probably would have been talking about that for half the show if it had been a close game they lost, because they were ahead, it looked like, going into the half, and then they just allowed BC to get some momentum, which, by the way, they came out of the second half with that momentum. Like, things looked real shaky at the start of the second half, too. I guess I'll just ask you this. Like, what do you need to see moving forward to give you confidence they'll beat some of these better teams? Because I think early in the season, we were wondering, wow, can JJ score 20-plus points every game? He's got 47 in his last 2 games, and they've been close games against inferior, I'll say, with optimism, competition. So what do you need to see? Does Chris Bell need to be the guy we saw in those first 2 games off the bench? Does Lucas Taylor need to be hitting not just catch-and-shoot threes, but more difficult shots? Do they simply need Donnie Freeman back? Does Kyle Cuff need to play the game the right way the whole time? Like, what can they do with this roster that might make a difference against these teams that we look at and think they're just not winning?
Yeah, I'll say this, and I don't want to be the one that's like putting a damper on a nice week here, a 2-0 week.
Well,
but
it's too late, so just be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I think these games they just won because they have better personnel and they have J.J. Starling. Like, why did they win these games? Because J.J. Starling is out there, compared to some of the games against this level of competition they lost a month ago because J.J. Starling was not an option late in games. It's a little concerning to me that we come out of this 2-0 week and it's not like, oh, the assist numbers went way up. They had 8 assists in this game. It's not like, oh, the 3-point shooting, we're finally seeing the strides of the team that we thought we were going to see, or they're getting up and down, or they went to full court pressure. They didn't really change anything from the typical strategy we've seen that has lost them games. It's just J.J. Starling is now out there, and J.J. Starling raises your floor a ton. And then they played Georgia Tech and BC, who are not very good teams. I thought Georgia Tech, you could actually come away from that game and be like, wow, they really had a good game plan on defense, and Georgia Tech's a good offense, and they minimized them. Some of that was just an off shooting night from the Yellow Jackets. This game, it was like Syracuse just had better personnel to go get a bucket in the likes of J.J. Starling down the stretch. So I think they're making strides as a team. I think the defense has gotten a whole lot better. They're going to more defensive-minded lineups, like Donnie Freeman hasn't been a great defender. Moore hasn't been a great defender. Bell hasn't been a great defender. Those guys are, if anything, I mean, obviously Freeman's playing less because of the injury. So they're getting more defensive-minded lineups out there, which is leading to a lot of half-court possessions where it's kind of just like, let's turn to JJ. And to JJ's credit, he's probably one of the best guys in the country right now to go get you a bucket like that. But can that be sustainable against Louisville? That's the question.
Yeah, I think my answer to that question is it's unfortunate that it's not something we can guarantee. But I think when Donnie Freeman comes back, he needs to be the guy who everybody expected him to be before the season started. I think you look at the numbers, and it's tough to say he's been a disappointment. But I think people were expecting just a little more punch, I guess. A little more oomph. Like, he's getting the boards. He can get buckets down low. He has improved on the three-point line. But I also think that, as you said, his defense has at times kept him off the floor, and it has at times given the Orange trouble. I think Donnie needs to come back and say, okay, we won 2 games, and the defense has looked better. And Donnie needs to 1,000% buy in. I told you this. Donnie should be averaging 2 or so blocks a game, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's long enough. Yeah.
So I think the only way Syracuse is going to beat all of these better teams is Donnie's going to basically have to be the 1B to JJ's 1A. We're going to need to see Donnie Freeman play better than he has all season consistently so that Syracuse has 2 guys that you can go into every game expecting them to score 20 or so. Yeah. And I know that seems like a lot to ask, but I think that's what it's going to take to beat some of these better teams. Like, Louisville's basically only lost to ranked teams. Like, you need
Chris Bell or Elijah Moore to make some shots too.
That
to
too,
beat a Louisville.
But
yeah,
Elijah. I mean, for some of those games, yeah, you're just gonna need guys to make shots. But I'm not even gonna put it all on them because I've seen enough from Lucas Taylor to where I think he can get hot and make some shots. And if Donnie's playing as well as he could, he's shown that he can shoot threes. JJ's relationship with the 3-point shot has been love-hate throughout his time at Syracuse. But I think if Donnie becomes a 20-point-a-game guy while JJ's in the lineup, that's the thing that I'm looking for most, and then everybody's life is easier. It's just, how are those two going to play together for long stretches? And most importantly, will Donnie be good enough on defense to where the juice is worth the squeeze?
Yeah, I think Red and the coaching staff are just fighting the struggle of, we need Chris Bell. Like, he has said after several games, we're a much better team with Chris Bell, and they need Chris Bell to do what he has done in some of these good games. But you throw him out there for 5-10 minutes and the game feels like it's slipping away if he's having an off game. And then we're seeing a lot of these lineups. Like, Kyle Cuff did contribute on offense today pretty well, especially in the second half. But again, I made the point earlier, I don't think they went into the second half wanting to play Kyle Cuff. I think it was Chris Bell went out there and he was like, Cuff has now played back-to-back games before that second half where he really didn't look good. He only played 4 minutes against Georgia Tech. Didn't play in the second half of that game.
Well, let me ask you that, not to cut you off. What do you do there, though? Because what you've said is that you think that Chris Bell hitting shots is going to be key, which I agree with.
That's the struggle.
Cuff's also provided that spark, and it doesn't seem like they're both going to play significantly in a game because we know Red loves what Lucas Taylor brings, and he's been delivering as of late. And we know that Eddie Lampkin is set in that 5 spot. We know Jair Davis has earned a role with his ability to play hard and score inside. So how do you balance that where you do need Chris Bell's shooting? But for all the tough games Kyle Cuff has had, you can't deny that he brings a spark and does some things when this team just has no life.
Yeah.
So it's...
But I guess the question is, can he do that against Louisville? Like, he did it against BC, and he's done it in spots. I mean, Wake Forest, he took a lot of shots. The first half against Wake, he looked good. The second half, he couldn't really make anything. So, I mean, Cuff, to me, I go back to what I said. He does a lot of things really well. It's just how effective is he going to be at making an open three or a somewhat open three? And
because his game doesn't look as good today if he doesn't make those 2 threes by any means.
So, and I don't think you can really live with him being out there if he's going 0 for 5 from 3. It's the same argument with some of the other guys like Chris Bell. So, I feel like they need a second guy. So, to the point where it's like Syracuse goes into every game and this guy is playing 38, 40 minutes. Whether that's Donnie Freeman, could it be Lampkin? I mean, I know they talk about Lampkin's conditioning and stuff like that. He played 33 minutes here today. He's been playing more because Freeman's been out. And Lampkin only attempted 5 shots. Sometimes I feel like they could do a better job of getting him the ball in good positioning. Like he's calling for it, but Syracuse doesn't have a lot of guys that can make a good entry pass at times. So
he can be a black hole at times, though, when he gets the ball.
Yeah, he had 3 turnovers. The team had 5. He had 3 of them, and they all came in the first half. So, yeah, that's the question mark with this team. I think you need someone that is a core guy alongside Starling so that it's a little bit easier to figure out the right rotations going forward.
Fair enough. I mean, we'll have plenty of time to talk about this on Monday on Orange Nation. And again, if you're just tuning in right now, for the first time, we will have our new show appropriately called Etan and Devo with Etan Thomas and Eric Devo and Dorf.
Yes, Devo and Dorf.
Yes. I think that's where the name comes from. Etan and Devo debuts 11:30 on Monday. They're going to be on every Monday, breaking down the past week of Syracuse basketball. And whether you like what they're saying or not, I think 2 things that people appreciate about those 2 guys is that they tell it how it is. So if you listen to any of these shows and you're like, yeah, these guys don't know what they're talking about. These guys are just saying what they think sounds good. If you don't think Etan and Devo are keeping it real, then I don't know what you want. So that's a show you're not going to want to miss. Again, that is 11:30 a.m. Mondays. You can watch it on Cuse Sports Talk. You can watch it on YouTube, and you can listen on ESPN Radio Syracuse. And, we'll get all into the Louisville game. Maybe we'll cry more about Kyle McCord going to the NFL. We'll miss you, Kyle. And we'll just give you your weekly dose of sports talk.
All right. Sounds like a plan. And that's a post-game show, I think. Thanks to everyone. Paul back in the studio in a way, helping out behind the scenes with the Twitch stream. And
in a way?
Well, I mean, we're in the studio.
Was in a way linked to back in the studio or helping out?
I said that because I when I call games, I say thanks to so-and-so back in the studio, and that was like a crutch that I fell back on. We're in the studio.
I'm just giving you grief. That was more at Paul than you.
Thank you, Paul. He's appreciated out there, I'm sure. And thanks to everyone in the chat as well on QSportsTalk.com, and we'll catch you next time on the Burdick Postgame Show.
Oh, if you're looking for